That is why you give them the freedom to explore nature. We don't teach from books. We just ask them to play around with things and discover. And believe me when I say this, they discover by themselves things like Archimedes' principle, Galileo's law of falling bodies. They themselves do it. We just ask them to do a few things and ask, what have you learned? Invariably they come up with the right answer. How is this possible? And yet, this is completely lost in the universities. So therefore, I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect, of course, is, as Professor Shomak Roychowdhury was saying, there's no connection between one stream of thinking and another stream of thinking. It is because everything is based on textbooks and on memorizing what your teacher tells you in the class and somehow vomiting it out on the exam paper. That is almost the sum total of education in our country. How can you educate the future mind? It's impossible. Rabindranath tried it in Shantiniketan. He was very successful at one time. Look at some of the creative people who have come out of Shantiniketan. In the arts field, you have Ramkinkar Vej, you have Vinod Bihari, you have Satyajit Ray, you have Amartya Sen, you have Mahashweta Devi. How many universities, small university like that, can boast of this kind of alumni? And how did that happen? We have to think. Because they were not made to learn from books. They were made to learn from nature. And excellent teachers. Imagine at that time, people like Nandalal Bose teaching school students. Where will you get this in the whole of the world? I challenge. You will not get it in any other place in the whole world. You will only get it in Shantiniketan. Or you got it in Shantiniketan. They have lost it. Now, we are very fortunate that people like Shomak Roychowdhury, Sushanta Dattagupta, they are now in charge of these places and they are bringing about the required change. Where you are allowed to take philosophy or music and physics. I'm so glad, Shomak, that you raised these points. But in school, as you were saying, this specialization too early. When I first went to Shantiniketan to teach in the year 1968, and I got the first batch of answer scripts, I was horrified because of the poor language they were using. I thought it may be because they were writing in English and they didn't know English very well. Could they write it in Bengali? No. They could not write in any language because that was never taught. In our time, when I was in St. Xavier's, we used to write an essay every week throughout the year. And that would be corrected. And we were encouraged to write, creative things. By the time my children went to St. Xavier's, that's gone. And even in my own alma mater, it's gone. So everything is breaking apart, falling to pieces. Why? Why are we so short-sighted? As Professor Rajan was saying, we should look forward. Things can't be built in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, the kind of things we have in mind. And yet, as Professor Roychowdhury was saying, there is this great demand in our young people. We are doing nothing. There is this stranglehold of politics and bureaucracy. How do you break through that? One possibility, again pointed out by Shomok, and of course Sir Ashutosh, private funding. But there I must caution you. A lot of people are moving into education because education is now a very profit-making proposition. That will not do. We need private funding of the kind given by Sir Taraknath Palit, Sir Ashbury Ghosh, or if you look at Harvard, the kind of funding they get, or Oxford. The people who provide funds know that they are investing in the future, long term. They do not get funds because we are going to get immediate profit. Education is something where profit is an anathema. So how do you break this stranglehold? I have one suggestion, a humble suggestion, but please consider it. And I have been trying to do this in my own small way, but doing it in a small way will not do. There must be a concerted effort. The concerted effort should be to sabotage the system. You will not be able to change this system, let me tell you. Not in your lifetime. But you can sabotage it by putting an alternative paradigm before people. And that alternative paradigm is to encourage young children to think without fear, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Can the private sector do something? If they can, then I think they will be really following in the footsteps of the great Sir Ashutosh. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. If there is a question, please take note of it. Then at the end of it, we will discuss the questions. After, I'll just take a few minutes because there is a lunch hour a few minutes from now. So I'll not take much time, maybe 10, 12 minutes roughly. If I escalate, you can stop me. Well, the issue is integral personality. Developing an integral personality, the vision of Sir Ashutosh. While structuring this agenda for today's program, the members of Education Committee, Education Task Force of Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, all of us sat together and we had a doubt whether the issue of integral personality would be considered as a pertinent issue in education or not. Because in the society this is not talked about. In our current curriculum, nothing is there which would hint at even developing an integral personality, integral view, integral vision of life. These are absent. But then we considered, collectively we thought that this is a very important dimension of future mind. If we want to develop this, if we want to have a takeoff from the current state of trauma, yes, I would like to. I like very much Dr. Rai Chaudhury's description of things, the way he had described. That's why I'm using the word trauma. If you want to have a transformation, a kind of takeoff from this status of or the state of trauma, then probably we have to have a greater ideal before us, create a greater ideal. Two examples I would like to draw from the world. One is the making of Kellogg in the United States, As Dr. Ghosh has put across certain examples and given a suggestion of private funding in education and how does it contribute towards autonomy, freedom of education and transforming the vision of education. Let's take an example from Kellogg on one hand and our own Calcutta University, Sir Ashutosh's period on the other. You know, you've seen the slides shown by scientist Dr. Rai Chaudhuri that, Palit contribution, 37.5 lakhs, 100 years ago. Now, what is the value now? Would anybody come forward to contribute that amount of money now? Nobody comes, probably. Kellogg had a beautiful model. Like, initially they had thought about, $1 billion. Then it had risen to $100 billion. So if you're contributing something within this $1 billion, your share of things would be limited as a proportion of your contribution to the $1 billion. Then when, in the third step, when it was risen to $100 billion, your contribution effectively in the, intellectual content of that remains the same, but you don't have any effective control of the system. You've given money, that doesn't mean that you have you can exercise your, command and control. What people used to say these days, I heard that, carrot and stick. Yesterday, I had to participate in a meeting which was actually coordinated by some people from Government of India, and many, Vice Chancellors of our state were there, and dignitaries of the Higher Education Council. I had an idea. I told the entire, team and people present that in India we need to have a student-centric education now. Now, if student-centrism has to be brought in, what are the changes in the structures and systems needed? Let's talk about that. Because it's going to happen in future. If we don't do it now, it's going to happen in future. For example, in Kellogg classroom, we have tried to do in our ELM classroom also the same way. Like if you enter the classroom, you'll find there is an advertisement, developed some kind of slogan, some captions, some, focus ideas developed by students. Some of the words are not very pleasant words, but it's used. The way the products catch the ideas, catch the eyes of people in the world, the way the services also catch the ideas of people and attention of people in the world, the same way, why don't you do homework while in the class? We were developing a curriculum for an upcoming university which we are setting up here in West Bengal. And there was a meeting for the physics group. Professor, you are here, it will be relevant. Please don't mind, please excuse me if I make a remark. Please excuse me for the remark. And at the outset of the meeting, I mentioned that, so far the physics teaching has been a teaching of, history of physics 80% and actual physics 20%. If my percentage is wrong, it could be somewhere nearby. I've not exactly measured, but it is my perception. And we did a brainstorming, and later on we came to a conclusion that yes, it's very heavy on history of physics than physics. Why? Because, a student, if I'm learning physics, what am I learning? A distinguished professor of physics is sitting in front, and what am I learning? For example, what previous scientists did, everything we learn, and write the exams based on that. What is the scope for me to develop an idea about things that might happen? For example, I suggested that, okay, Apple was falling, somebody saw that Apple is falling and developed a, rule, an idea, a model for that, a theory for that. Okay, we interact with each other. Two individuals sitting together, having talks, dialogue, fights, friendship, whatever. Interactions.
Now, can there be any physics between? Is there any physics between me and my world? Is there any physics in my walking, my running, my standing, my sitting? Is there any physics in my getting contained in a place or, moving around? Now, can I discover something from here? Can I have a project which would say, okay, the impact of physics in your life, let's say first 6 hours of your day. What is the impact of physics? Find out. Can it be a, kind of assignment for me if I'm a student of physics? Why not? If a singer can develop, the modules of mathematics, or if a mathematician can find out similarity with the tones and overtones of singing, dancing, why not? The life demands integral perspective. Without that, life is really fragmented. The problems of fragmentation is a problem of modern civilization. Those who have studied the civilization, they have come to this conclusion. Long ago, Albert Einstein had a dialogue with Professor Ikeda of Japan. It's very widespread, it's very widely known to many people. Maybe all of you know this. Still, I would like to, mention that once again. The dialogue between Einstein and Ikeda, very important from historical perspective of understanding civilization. He wanted to understand the intent of human civilization. Einstein wanted to understand. And Ikeda said, yes, I have studied the civilization and then find the intent is, from one to the other step and possibly upward. The journey should be upward. We have seen that when Macaulay had brought in the concept of Indian education, he had a filtration theory, in his mind, and he had put across this filtration theory before Indian public, and that was a basic foundation theory of Indian education system, post British period. Now this filtration theory, what is that? Education is the right of those people who are at the top, high level of the social strata. So, and it should filter down. Whatever is needed for the bottom would get it. So bottom should aspire something as a beggar, and beggar gets some alms, and the filtration would give you some alms in the form of some kind of wisdom speeches, some knowledge which would be permitted by the people sitting in the upper strata. Now let's go back to our own ancient civilization. I was mentioning about two interactions, two situations. In my inaugural talk, I was mentioning that. When I was mentioning between Yajnavalkya and Sage Gautam, and Yajnavalkya and Sage Gautam together, and Sage Satyakam, young person, he was 10 years old when he was inducted to the school of Sage Gautam on the strength of his speaking truth. He was asked about his credential. Satyakam had said, because he didn't have the credential understood. What he learned from his mother had said, I am Jabala and you are Satyakam, this much. And if somebody asked, you mention this only. And he had mentioned this only to his teacher, Gautama. And Gautama was, overwhelmed. Understanding the, depth of truth, depth of the test of truth in the young person, 10-year-old boy, and had said that, okay, I would like to induct you in my monastery as a student, my, disciple. Be here. But I'll give you a very special task to perform. See, the kind of education is this boy of 10-year-old is now going to experience. He said, look here, there are 300 cows available there. Take them down. You take them down to the jungle, which is, few kilometers apart. Take them to the forest. Be there. And you see the condition of the cows. These are all old. They're not milching. They're not in a good health. They can't even, it's very difficult for you to drag them down, but still you have to. A 10-year-old boy is got an assignment from the teacher of this kind. See the kind of assignment. And he's taking this 300 cows, old, disabled, down to the forest. He's so happy. He's very, very happy. And some of the Western scholars have, commented, while translating this part of the Upanishad, has commented, saying that the most cruel teacher on earth, the most cruel teacher the human civilization has ever witnessed. I'd rather, contradict all of them saying the best teacher on earth. Because the Satyakam went to the forest with this kind of assignment in a very, very extremely happy mood. He was so delighted because it was a coveted thing to become a student of Gautama. He went to the forest, had spent years, he didn't have the calculations of, and he found one fine morning, the gentle breeze comes and, touches his ears and tells, this is what is the, identity of Brahman. One fine day he finds there is a lightning happening and the lightning comes closer to his ears and telling, this is what is the identity of the Brahman. One fine morning he finds that, the jungle animals comes closer to him and encircles him and telling in a chorus voice, they're telling that this is what is the identity of Brahman. And one fine morning he has got everything disappears and he's got an understanding from the universe altogether, from all around, saying that this is what is the Brahman. This is in our Rig Vedas called Chatushkal Brahman. The 4 different aspects of the identity of the Supreme Self. It was done by a person, 10-year-old student, of a teacher who has never taught him, and terrible life this boy had to live, yet highly delighted life for years, maybe for decades. Then one fine morning, one of those, grown-up cows came closer to his eyes and said, sir, we have become 1,000. Because the condition given by the teacher is, come back. That day only. When the number of these cows have reached 1,000, and everyone is healthy, and there are a lot of milching cows. That is the day of your coming back. Don't come before that. See, what is the kind of education? You have thrown this boy to the lap of the nature. Rabindranath Tagore wanted to have a kind of replica of that in Shantiniketan. He had an understanding that the shade of a tree, the open sky around is a lot of open space, would make the mind broader. It will not constrict the mind. It will not make us very, very selfish in our own attitude and career. It will open up. It will help us to open up. But then, that's one system, as I have given an example in short. The other one, this Shatyakam, when he became a very, senior person, a great sage, he had 12 students in his, school. One of the students is the most brilliant sage Pipal, Rishi Pipalad. Now Pipal was a very, very brilliant student in his monastery, in his school. And this Pipal, Shamavartan is there. Convocation is not a matter of the modern time. It was discovered in India. It was, practiced in India. It was started in India. It was practiced in our ancient civilization. Yajnavalkya had 10,000 students on record. And all 10,000 had passed through the convocation of Yajnavalkya at different phases. The first university of the world, I claim. I've claimed it in many places. If anyone contradicts, I've never found anybody contradicting till now on my papers on this. If anybody contradicts, I have answers. Now, see, these people, Out of 12 people, he was the first among all these 12. Very, very punctual, prolific, outstanding in his thoughts, actions, behavior. Whatever the teacher expects, wants, he goes far beyond. Yet, on the day of convocation, the teacher stands in front, calls the names of the second till 12th. The first is not called upon. Sage people could not become a sage from that and could not, get there was no, paper certificate. It's just the declaration, verbal declaration of the teacher, that's your certificate. The teacher did not make any announcement about people. No calling of it. He was amazed. He was astonished. He was very sad. Then he went to Guru Mata, wife of Satyakam, and said, "What is that wrong thing I have done? Please tell me, Mother." Mother said, "I don't understand what has gone wrong, but I'll ask." Satyakam was asked the question. He said, "I'll answer after 12 years. After 12 years. Then people was given an assignment. He was called by the teacher and he was given an assignment. Go to the households, visit the houses. Find out a person who is very happy within and happy without. Try to understand the happiness of the person within and without. Go to the households, find out the persons who are suffering, who are having pains within. Try to understand what are the causes of the pains. Come back. You will take 12 years. After that you come and see me." And it was a fact that people had to traverse through, had to travel through, which Swami Vivekananda at a later period did by walking across the, length and breadth of the country. People had done that. And he visited the households at all remote corners within the jungle, in the, living places, everywhere. Tried to understand the people. Came back after 12 years. The sage, the teacher, was so profusely happy. He said, "You are going to be the most ideal sage for the human civilization." Why? Because, I'm a person who understood, who had realized the divine sitting in the jungle. I wanted to develop a person who would realize the divine going across, meeting with the people. Otherwise, this knowledge does not become complete. See, it's not me alone, but it's I and you together. Combine your, realization and mine, that becomes an integral realization for the human civilization. See, that's the concept of integral personality. Our personality becomes integral with all around. Integral is a sum total. In our mathematics, we do summation, integration. The concept of integration starts with a small segment of thing. It can integrate similar things together. But here the concept of integration is integration of dissimilar things together.